What happens when you strap 4 humans to 8.8 million pounds of thrust and aim them at a rock 250,000 miles away, using a heat shield that already cracked once? Well, Artemis II is complete. 4 astronauts flew around the moon and came home. And what happened over those 10 days is a story that deserves to be told from start to finish, because buried inside this mission are moments of engineering brilliance, genuine danger, and a view of the universe that made even the crew run out of adjectives. By the end of this video, you'll understand every phase of the journey, why the most terrifying 3 minutes came at the very end, and what this means for everything that comes next. Let's start at the beginning. On April 1st, 2026, at 6:35 in the evening, NASA's Space Launch System rocket lifted off from Kennedy Space Center's Launch Pad 39B, the same pad that once sent astronauts to the moon half a century ago. Sitting inside the Orion capsule, which the crew named Integrity, were 4 astronauts. Commander Reed Wiseman, a seasoned spaceflight veteran who once lived aboard the ISS. Pilot Victor Glover, the first black astronaut ever assigned to a lunar mission. Mission specialist Christina Koch, who already held the record for the longest single spaceflight by a woman at 328 days. And Jeremy Hansen, a Canadian Space Agency astronaut, the first Canadian to ever fly beyond low Earth orbit. That crew alone made history before the rocket even cleared the tower. But here's what nobody talks about. The SLS core stage, for all its spectacle, only did its job for about 8 minutes. 4 RS-25 engines, repurposed from the Space Shuttle program, ignited several seconds before liftoff. 2 solid rocket boosters provided the bulk of the thrust during those first 2 minutes, pushing the vehicle to around 3,100 miles per hour before explosive bolts fired, and they fell away into the Atlantic, near the Bahamas. By the 8-minute mark, Orion was traveling at about 17,000 miles per hour, roughly 100 miles up. And then, the core stage was done, gone, spent. I like to call the next part of this mission the orbit audition, because Orion didn't shoot straight for the moon. Instead, it spent about a day in high Earth orbit. After initial Earth orbit maneuvers, the crew used this time to run through every critical system on the spacecraft: life support, propulsion, navigation, power, thermal controls. They were asking the ship one question over and over: are you ready? And during this phase, the crew actually took manual control of the spacecraft and practiced flying toward and around the now empty upper stage, treating it like a target for about 70 minutes. This proximity operations demonstration was a rehearsal for future Artemis missions, where docking precision could mean the difference between a successful lunar landing and a very expensive failure. Now, here's where it gets serious. On Flight Day 2 came one of the mission's riskiest moments, according to SLS Program Manager John Honeycutt himself. Orion's service module fired its main engine in a trans-lunar injection burn. 5 minutes and 50 seconds of sustained engine fire that accelerated Orion fast enough to break free of Earth's orbit. Capcom Chris Birch radioed up the words the entire control room was waiting for. Integrity looks like a good burn. And just like that, for the first time since Apollo 17 in 1972, human beings had left Earth orbit. Here's where the scale starts to hit you. Imagine driving from New York to Los Angeles. That's about 2,800 miles. Now multiply that by 90. That's roughly how far these astronauts traveled from Earth at their most distant point: 252,756 miles, which, turns out, is over 4,100 miles further than the Apollo 13 crew ever reached back in 1970, a record that stood for 56 years, broken on a Monday afternoon. But that's not even the most interesting part. By late on day 5, Orion slipped into the moon's gravitational sphere of influence. Christina Koch described the moment perfectly, saying they were now falling to the moon rather than rising away from Earth. Yet Orion never entered lunar orbit. That's a critical distinction. Instead, it followed what's called a free return trajectory. Think of it like a cosmic slingshot. The moon's gravity grabbed the spacecraft, whipped it around the far side, and Earth's gravity pulled it back home. No major burn required for the return trip. If everything had failed, the laws of physics themselves would have carried the crew back toward Earth. That's the beauty of a free return. It's the universe's built-in safety net. The same trajectory, incidentally, that saved the crew of Apollo 13. Day 6 was the crown jewel, and it delivered more than anyone expected. The crew swung behind the far side of the moon, passing within just 4,067 miles of the surface at closest approach. At that point, Orion was hurtling at over 60,000 miles per hour relative to Earth, yet only about 3,100 relative to the moon. The moon filled their windows like a basketball held at arm's length. They photographed craters and geological features on the far side that no human eyes had ever directly seen. And as Orion slipped behind the moon, the crew witnessed something with no true precedent. An Earth set. Our entire world, every person, every city, every ocean, slowly sinking below the lunar horizon until it was simply gone. And then came something that turned an already historic day into something almost surreal. As Orion, the moon, and the sun aligned, the crew witnessed a total solar eclipse from lunar distance. They watched the sun disappear behind a mostly darkened moon, the solar corona glowing around its edge like a ring of white fire. Victor Glover called the view unreal. Another crew member said they'd need to invent new adjectives. They even watched for flashes of meteoroids striking the lunar surface, data that could help assess hazards for astronauts who will actually walk there soon. Now, during the far side passage, the moon itself blocked all radio signals between the crew and mission control. For about 40 minutes, those 4 astronauts were completely alone. No voice from Earth, no telemetry. Before the blackout, they received a recorded message from Jim Lovell, the Apollo 8 and Apollo 13 astronaut who passed away in 2025, wishing them well on a journey that echoed his own so deeply. Then, roughly 40 minutes later, as the spacecraft emerged from the other side, they saw it return, an Earthrise. Our pale blue planet cresting over the barren lunar horizon, just as the Apollo 8 crew first witnessed it in 1968. Except this time, 4 humans had just watched their home disappear and reappear, like a candle blown out and relit across 250,000 miles of void. After the flyby, the crew began the long coast home. Days 7 through 9 were filled with trajectory correction burns, a radiation shelter construction demonstration, manual piloting tests, and frankly, waiting. They ate barbecue brisket and macaroni and cheese from a menu of 189 shelf-stable items. Because even at 250,000 miles from home, comfort food matters. But all of that was prologue to the real finale, the moment that had engineers holding their breath since 2022, reentry. About 9 days into the mission, the Orion crew module separated from its service module. That service module, the European-built powerhouse that had kept them alive for over a week, burned up in the atmosphere. What remained was a capsule with a 16.5-foot heat shield on its belly, the largest ablative heat shield ever built. And here is the part that made this re-entry different from any other in history. During the uncrewed Artemis I mission in 2022, that same type of heat shield cracked and shed material in chunks. The Avcoat ablative coating didn't vent its gases properly. Pressure built up inside the material and it fractured, not the way it was designed to work. Rather than replace the shield, NASA chose to change the way Orion came home. Artemis I had used a skip reentry technique, where the capsule dips into the atmosphere, bounces back out to a high altitude, and dives in again. The problem was that pause between dips. When the capsule climbed back out, external heating dropped, but the interior was still blazing hot, still producing gas. And because the reformulated AV coat wasn't permeable enough, that gas had nowhere to go. Pressure built up. The shield cracked from the inside out. So for Artemis II, NASA flew what they called a lofted reentry, still a skip, but with a much shorter, shallower climb back out. The idea was to keep the heat shield hot enough throughout the entire sequence so the outer char layer stayed permeable, letting the gas breathe its way out instead of building to a breaking point. At 7:53 p.m. Eastern on April 10th, Orion hit Earth's atmosphere at 400,000 feet, traveling 35 times the speed of sound, approximately 25,000 miles per hour. To put that in perspective, a bullet from a rifle moves at roughly 1,700 miles per hour. Orion came in almost 15 times faster than that. The exterior reached temperatures around 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, superheated plasma wrapped around the capsule, and for 6 minutes, all communications went dark. Nobody on Earth knew if the heat shield was holding. Nobody could ask. Nobody could help. And then the parachutes opened. 10 minutes after atmospheric entry, 2 drogue chutes deployed, slowing the capsule from about 327 miles per hour. Then 3 pilot chutes pulled out the 3 massive mains. 11 parachutes in total working in sequence, bringing integrity from the edge of oblivion down to about 20 miles per hour. Mission Control called it a perfect bullseye splashdown, and they meant it. Integrity hit the Pacific Ocean off the coast of San Diego at exactly 8:07 p.m. Eastern, right on schedule, right on target. Commander Wiseman radioed that all 4 crew members were doing well. Recovery teams moved in on inflatable boats. Divers attached a sea anchor to stabilize the capsule, fitted an inflatable collar around its base, and set up a raft they call the front porch beneath the side hatch. About an hour after splashdown, the crew was extracted, flown by helicopter to the USS John P. Murtha, and taken aboard for medical evaluations before heading to Johnson Space Center in Houston. About 700,000 total miles traveled, the farthest any humans have ever been from home. The first woman, first person of color, first Canadian, and the oldest person to fly around the moon, and a solar eclipse witnessed from a vantage point no human had ever occupied. Now that we're back, the real question isn't whether we can go to the moon. It's whether we'll stay this time. What do you think? Tell us in the comments.